Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. I am now almost 2 months postpartum, so I thought I would share my birth story with you. It was a Friday and I woke up and lost some of my mucus plug. Now, because of the way my first labour went, I lost mucus plug / bloody show and immediately started contractions and had the baby 18 hours later. So when I woke up this Friday and lost my mucus plug, I thought, here we go. Quite naive of me to think that both of my labours were going to be similar. That day we were taking our eldest to our mum's for the weekend, so we were like, oh perfect, she can go there, we can have the baby, my mum can bring her back in a couple of days, all great. That's not how it went. All weekend went by, I was super frustrated, was losing bits of mucus plug here and there, having Braxton Hicks, and they were very obviously Braxton Hicks, they weren't contractions. So it was all just a bit frustrating. And I'd read so many stories online of mums with 2 children that when they drop the eldest off or the eldest gets taken, they can like relax and get into their little oxytocin bubble, and that's when labour starts. And that's just not what happened for me. So I did the miles circuit, I was doing everything I thought would help bring on labour, which obviously, like, if the baby's not ready to come, the baby's not ready to come. It gets to the Sunday, we go and pick up our daughter up from my mum's, we come back home. Literally before we go to bed, I went to the toilet and there was ever so slight pink on the tissue after I wiped. And I thought, I'm not getting my hopes up again, but I was thinking this is the start of it. But I didn't want to tell Demeji, I didn't want to tell my mum, I just wanted to keep it to myself, because what if it was just like the mucus plug on Friday? So then went to bed and I woke up at 3 AM with a contraction, and I knew it was a contraction. I came downstairs, made myself a cup of tea because I was like, right, this is it. From my first contraction with my first, it was 18 hours later. Second labour should be quicker, right? This is it, baby's going to be here today. Oh my god, I'm so excited. Let me just get in my bubble and not wake anyone up and just work through these minor contractions. And then it gets to about 4. In fact, I'm going to check. My mum was coming to help to stay with us so that she could look after our eldest. Obviously I was planning a home birth, so my mum was going to stay here with us so that she could look after our eldest while we were like in the birthing bubble. So I woke up at 3 with my first contraction, 3:52 AM. I know my mum gets up really early for work, so I knew she'd be up soon, so I texted my mum at 3:52 AM. And that morning I had more of a bloody show as well. The contraction and the bloody show came at the same time. So I said, morning mum, I've had a bloody show and I'm pretty sure I'm having mild contractions. Not ringing you because I know you'll be up for work soon anyway. I wanted you to sleep as much as you can. Thinking, you got work to do today, looking after my toddler. And then she texted back an hour later, she was up, and she said, do you need me over yet? And I said, it's defo starting. So then we decided that she should come. It's 5 AM at this point, she should just get ready and come over before the traffic starts. I'll set off in an hour, she said. And she came over. And then in that time, I actually went up to tell Demeji that my contractions had started, but for him to stay in bed. And then mum came and me and my mum were just chatting, and I don't remember what we were doing, just sat around having a chat. We started just being in our little bubble. Oxytocin is released more in your body when there's dim lights or no lights, so we went upstairs, kept the curtains closed, just me and him, watching TV shows that I like and just trying to work through the contractions. They're building up, they're still very sporadic at this point. They're like 12 minutes apart, 8 minutes apart, 15 minutes apart, like they're just all over the place. And bearing in mind I've been up since 3 AM, so I'm exhausted at this point. So I kept trying to sleep, but every time I laid down or slept, they would get further apart. And in my head, I'm like, I need this to start getting on. Like, I don't want them to be further apart, so I'm not going to sleep. So then I would like try and force myself to stay awake. But bearing in mind, I don't find it comfortable to lay down while I'm contracting or sit down. So I'm on my feet or my hands and knees constantly. So I'm just exhausted. The day's getting on and I'm just so tired. So I kept trying to sleep. Come downstairs, have a drink, have a snack, go back up, like trying all these different things. and nothing was working. They were just so sporadic. It gets to the night times come around. I thought I'd have a baby in my arms at this point, and I was so frustrated and tired. I've been contracting all day long. My labour already is longer than my first one. So I'm just exhausted, and at some points they're getting to 5 minutes apart, and then they're going further apart again, back to 12 minutes, back to 15 minutes. So yeah, exhausted at this point. The night comes around and I'm like, it's night time, oxytocin's gonna ramp up, like everything I know about birth and labour. I'm like, yeah, night time's the perfect time to birth, come on, we can do this. And I'm laughing with Demeji, we're watching TV shows, I'm like just trying to stay in this little bubble, and nothing is working. They keep getting further apart. I didn't contact the midwives or triage at this point because I'm like, there's no point. I'm texting my student midwife the whole time. At night at 10 o'clock we're still texting, and I'm telling her exactly what's going on. Every time I rest they come apart, so I don't want to rest. And she said, don't be afraid to rest, you'll need all of your energy. And that just switched it for me, and I was like, right, you're right, I'm going to bed. And I went to sleep. And then I woke up, and at 5 AM I text her again saying, I'm getting contractions consistently every 5 minutes now, and they're becoming more intense. And I said to her, thank you for telling me to not be afraid to rest. I went to sleep, and I really think that that's what's done it. And I'm so grateful that she said that to me, because then after that rest I woke up and they were intense and they were regular, and it was just such a good feeling, and I had had rest, so it was so good to feel that. They did then go further apart, but the intensity was still there, and the intensity was still ramping up every single contraction. I could feel they're getting more intense. Hi, can you hear those baby grunts? I could just feel the intensity was building and building and building, which was a great feeling after a day of like here and there labour. So I went back to sleep again and texted her again at 10 saying they're back to every 5 minutes. And then she texted me at midday at 12 saying, have you been in contact with the midwives? And she suggested that I call triage. And at that point I was timing my contractions on an app. The app's called Freya, for any pregnant mums that might need it, and it's great. I used it with both my labours. And the app told me you're in established labour. So I was like, okay, my student midwife's telling me I feel like I need to, and the app's telling me let's call triage. So I called triage. Hey, I'm having a home birth. Do you want the midwives to come? I was like, no, I think I'm alright. I just want you guys to know like where we're at. And this was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon now. Bearing in mind my contractions had started at the previous day at 3 AM, so this is over 24 hours after my first contraction. Call them and no, I'm fine, like I don't think I need them here. The next contraction comes and goes, and I look at Demeji and I'm like, let's call them back. I think I need them here. It was so intense. So we called them back, and I was like, yeah guys, I think I need you here now. This was about 1 o'clock. When I spoke to that midwife for the first time on the phone, the community midwife, I just knew she was someone that I wanted here with me. I was so happy, she was so great. I had a contraction while I was on the phone with her. And she talked me through it, and she was just so great. So I was so happy to know that she was coming. She was like, right, I think it's going to take us about 45 minutes to get to you, we'll be there. So then in that time, I'm just walking around, breathing through my contractions. They're building in intensity, I can't talk through them anymore, and that's why I knew, like, I think I need them here. So then Demeji brings the birth pool in here, we get all set up. This is the point where I start vocalising through my contractions, so it's really like deep primal noises. Not loud yet, but not only breathing, there's noises coming out with each contraction, because that's what's helping me through it. That's how I knew really, like, we're getting somewhere with this. So yeah, we bring the birth pool in here. It's 2 o'clock when the midwives arrive, 2 midwives, and they're both so lovely, and I'm just so happy to have them there. They read through my birth plan, they complimented me on my birth plan. They both read every single page of it and said how great it was that I had a plan A, B and C, so a plan for home birth, a plan for transfer and a plan for caesarean section, and how I wanted each one of those to look. And it was just so nice to have that validation from a healthcare professional that it means something to to write a birth plan, because you see so much online of midwives saying, oh, babies don't know how to read, so you shouldn't bother with a birth plan. Like, it's really, really important that you know your options in birth. So it was so lovely and validating to know that the work that I'd put in writing this birth plan was appreciated by the people that were going to be looking after me in that moment. The midwives are here, they do all their checks, and I'm really, really out of it at this point. With each contraction, I'm in my zone. I remember being on this couch on all fours while they were trying to speak to me. Oh, look at this big girl. Guys, she's not even 2 months old yet, and she's growing out of her 0 to 3 baby girls. She's a big girl. They did their checks. I was 4 centimetres dilated when they arrived, and at that point they were like, yep, so because you're 4 centimetres, we're actually just going to stay now. So then we get the pool in here. Demeji did all of it, bless him. I was totally out of it, like really in the zone, contracting, working through them, and he starts filling the pool up, and as soon as they've finished everything and the pool's full, I just got in it. So I think it was about 2:30 at this point, and the midwives set up in our kitchen, and they would pop in here every now and then and sit on that sofa over there while the pool was here. And so then I got in, and the water was such a relief. Oh my god, it was so nice to be in the water. I feel like I never ever want to birth on land again. Like, I want all my babies in water from now on, because it was just so nice. I love baths, and I knew that I'd love the water, so it's really nice to be in there. Leant over the side, Demeji was holding my hands, and for me something that really helps during a contraction is counter pressure. So even in my first labour, I think I've told you guys before that I would like pull down on his arms, standing up, and then just pull on him, because that counter pressure for all the pressure that you feel in your body through a contraction, I needed to pull away from it basically. And so I was doing that again, but on the side of the pool. They're really ramping up. The water didn't slow them down at all. There was no slowing it down at this point. I think I was close to transitioning. Even in my first labour, my eyes barely opened. Once I transitioned, my eyes stayed shut, and I was just in the zone, breathing through, vocalising through every contraction, just feeling it all. Then it got to about 3 o'clock, I think, and that's when I asked for gas and air. And that really helped me control my breathing, stay in control. It did the first time once I transitioned and I was pushing, and so I knew it would help me this time. The one thing that I didn't want is to make myself feel sick from it again, because that's what I did the first time. Just breathing and vocalising through all these contractions, and they were getting more and more intense. The midwives were so wonderful. The midwives were amazing. I'm so grateful for all of them that were at my birth, and the way that they handled everything, it was just perfect. Everything was a question. They were so supportive. They listened to me. I'm breathing through, vocalising through. They're getting more and more intense. I'm needing to pull even harder on Demeji each time. Oh, I think that's the health visitor. Sorry guys, had a health visitor appointment. We're back now, and I can't remember where I got to. I've got my notes, a picture of my notes on my phone. I requested gas and air at 3:15 because I really felt the intensity increase. I was just in the zone, guys, like eyes closed, breathing, making these deep primal sounds. Like, yeah, it was like an animal noise. Like, it just, yeah, it really feels good to, like, on your out breath, just really feel that contraction and that intensity like go through your body. On here it says that I had the urge to push at 3:33 with the last contraction, so that was when it started, and I was really feeling this uncontrollable urge to push and just bear down and just let my body just get this baby out. And so I'm hanging over the edge of the pool, and I'm like pulling on Demeji's arms. This knee was like down, this leg kept coming around, and like I was just letting my body go where it wanted in the water, but I was really like pulling against the side of the pool and against Demeji. That counter pressure felt so good with every contraction. The urge to push started at 3:30, so I was pushing for an hour. So 8 minutes later, so I'm assuming 2 or 3 contractions passed, my waters burst and I felt them, and it felt so good. So in my first labour I didn't feel them go because they popped them, and I actually don't remember much from my first labour, which really upsets me. I felt the pop. It was amazing. And she said, I think your waters just went there, Saffron. I was like, yeah, me too. And then she said they were all clear and it was all good. So yeah, waters had gone, and that's when the intensity just flew. Like, it was so intense from that point on, and they were coming so quick, and everything, the pressure was just going down and down and down and down. And that urge to just let my body just push and really roaring through these contractions, and really like the noises were getting louder and deeper, and thank God I had Demeji there, and the midwives were so amazing. Oh my God, it was such a beautiful experience. And for me, remembering all of it is so great, because like I said the first time around, I just don't remember it, and it makes me really sad. So just remembering those feelings, and I remember feeling the head come out, and I remember thinking, oh my God, that's the hardest bit done. I've done it. Because then, for me, the first time, it just felt the body like just blah, blah, blah. Like, that's literally what it feels like. The body just falls out, and it did feel like that again. So the head came out, and it was the next push, I think. Let's see. Head delivered 4:27, and then baby delivered 4:28. So yeah, within the next push, she was all out, and I remember turning around, and they said, "Go on, Saffron, get your baby." And I looked down, and she was floating in the water with her eyes just wide open, just looking up at me. I just picked her up and put her on my chest, and it was amazing. And so obviously we had those 2 midwives initially, and I was there in the room with them. I knew they were there, and then when I looked up, there was another midwife there, and then there was my student midwife Abby there with me, and I'm so glad Abby made it. And it was just, oh my God, I was so happy she was there. And I remember, I'm sure I remember at one point in labour saying to Demeji, can you tell Abby to come? Can you make sure she's coming? Because I really wanted her to be there. The baby was out and she was on my chest, and I remember getting immediate ick from the water. It felt cold all of a sudden. I looked down, and obviously there's a lot of bodily fluids in there. So I was just like, I just really want to get out of the water. But I stayed in there for ages. Looking back at the footage, I was in there for ages, far too long for what I wanted in that moment. And it took one of the midwives saying, you can get out, for me to be like, yeah, get me out of here. Got out, laid literally right here with her. She didn't really want to latch at first. They were really encouraging her breastfeeding, but she didn't want to. But we tried, and she was here and there suckling, trying to get this placenta out. And those after pains, guys, oh my God, the contractions that continue after birth for me are really painful, and I was still having that gas and air. Same with my first labour, just gas and air to try and get this placenta out. And they were really encouraging it, and I really didn't want the injection because of my experience before. It made me really sick. So really didn't want this injection, and they were so great. And the midwives were sure. We waited hours, by the way. Let me have a look. Placenta delivered at 5:52 eventually, so an hour and a half, sorry, not hours. We waited an hour and a half. They were trying to encourage me to have a wee, and I just couldn't go. And they were sure that my bladder was really full, and that was why my placenta couldn't be delivered, because my bladder was blocking its way, basically. And so they asked my permission, can we do an in and out catheter to get your wee out, and then the placenta should come out? And so I agreed to it, did this catheter. It was slightly uncomfortable, nothing crazy. I just pushed a baby out, so it wasn't bad. Bladder drained with in and out catheter at 5:47. 5 minutes later, placenta delivered. So yeah, all came out. They plopped it on the couch next to me. We all had a little look at it. Amazing what our bodies do. I appreciate some people like to keep theirs. I did not want mine. I know who I am as a person. It would stay in my freezer forever and then eventually get thrown out. So I was like, please guys, take it. I don't know what to do with it. We don't own our house, so it's not like I can bury it or want to bury it and then it be in someone else's garden. Like, no, you guys can take it and do whatever you will with it. They examined me to check for any tears. I had torn, which at the time I was so disappointed by, because with my first labour I just had grazers, and so for this time to say, yeah, you've got a 2nd degree tear, and I thought, oh, I did everything right to not tear. I birthed in the water, I didn't do any coached pushing, blah 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 blah. But then they weighed her, and she weighed a kg heavier than my firstborn. She was a big girl, she's 9 pounds when she was born, and so I was like, right, that's why I've got a second degree tear. It all makes sense and I don't mind so much anymore. I've just birthed out a big baby at home, guys, like what? 9 pounds. So they stitched me up, and the midwife that did my stitches, she was, oh my god, these midwives, guys, they were like angels sent to me. They were so great, they were perfect. I'm so happy I had all of them with me. Just their knowledge of like the catheter, so I didn't have to have the injection, and then the care that she took doing my stitches. Oh my god, angels. Literally had my stitches here, laid on this couch with such care done, and they give you a little injection before they do your stitches. We obviously waited till white for the cord. We waited a long time, we waited an hour and a half, so she definitely got all of her goodness out of that placenta. I had my stitches, Demeji was cuddling her, and then the midwives did all their work in the kitchen, like all their notes and stuff, and Demeji and my mum cleared the pool away while I just laid here. And I just laid here cuddling, breastfeeding, and then we ordered a Nando's and we went and got in our own bed, and it was just amazing. It was the best experience of my life and I can't wait to do it again. It was just perfect. So at the end of my pregnancy as well, I was measuring big. I was measuring larger than what they were tracking for me, and I don't know if you remember in my vlogs, I went for one growth scan actually, and I went for one and I was like, the sonographer said everything was fine, everything looked healthy, and then there were 2 times after that that my bump measured big, and the first time I refused a growth scan, and the second time we all agreed in the room that it was such a negligible amount that I was measuring bigger that we didn't need to be referred for a growth scan, so that was fine. And I am so glad that I declined and just didn't go for any more scans, because one, they're inaccurate towards the end. It's really difficult to get an accurate weight of the baby, and 2, if they had known that she was going to be 9 pounds, I'm pretty sure they would have tried to sway me away from having a home birth, and I would have been doing it out of guidelines, which is just a stress that you don't need. If they thought that she was going to be big, they would have like tried to scare me with shoulder dystocia and all these kind of things, and birthing a big baby at home, they would have at least tried to get me in the hospital, and I did it. Like, I birthed her, she was a big girl, and I birthed her at home with no pain meds and no real trouble. It was very smooth labour in the end, and so thank God I didn't go for those growth scans. And everyone agreed in the room that I did the right thing by declining my growth scans, because it could have had different outcomes. So yeah, that was it. It was the best experience of my life. I really recommend anyone that has a low risk pregnancy to have a water birth at least, and push for a home birth if that's what you want to do, because it was the greatest experience. And I can't help but think that because my labour was long and slow at the beginning, if I'd ended up going into hospital or like coming back and forth, it's just going to slow it down even more. A friend of mine is pregnant at the moment, and she put on her story that in a country in Europe it's illegal to move an animal while they're in labour because it disrupts the process too much. And as women, we're expected to travel to hospitals where there's people we don't know, and it's so unfamiliar, and it's not an oxytocin boosting environment, and we're expected to do that as the norm, and it just shouldn't be the norm. Our bodies are made to birth these babies. And that is not me saying that everyone should have home births, everyone should have water births. What I think is everyone should be 100% informed and empowered in their decisions. And for low risk pregnancies, the safest place statistically is at home. Anyways, I loved it. If you want to have a home birth, if you've got a low risk pregnancy, I really, really recommend it. It was a great experience, and I cannot wait to do it again. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about my experience or anything like that, please feel free to comment, or if you want it to be more private, DM me on my Instagram. My handles are the same on all platforms, so you'll be able to find me over there. Just message me on any platform if you want to talk about it, and I'm so happy to talk about it.